Moving forward, let's create simple geometries in AutoCAD. Let's create a new drawing. I'm going to head up and select this icon or hit Control N to create a new drawing. So we are prompted to select a template. Let's select acad.dwt, double left click. Next, let's create a simple rectangle. So let's head up to draw and select rectangle. We are now prompted to place our first corner. And before we drop our first corner, let me share to you that all CAD programs has an X, Y, Z coordinates. And same it goes with AutoCAD. And locating that coordinates, which is 0, 0, 0, which is the origin for our X, Y, Z, is a must, especially to those who are in the architectural field and the civil design. Okay, once more, rectangle tool still active, and notice the dimension on the left, which currently has a value of 33.7719, is currently active and highlighted in blue. I'm going to type in 0, 0. Next, hitting enter, and notice it placed our first point on our origin. And that origin, which is 0, 0, is currently represented by our UCS icon showing X and Y axis. Moving forward, our horizontal dimension is currently highlighted in blue, which denotes it's active. Let's key in 100. I'm going to hit tab on my keyboard and the key in this time 50. Hitting enter. And congratulations for completing or creating your first geometry in AutoCAD. Moving forward, it's now a great time to discover how to work around an AutoCAD drawing. Let's start off by zooming in and zooming out in AutoCAD, and it's simply scrolling your mouse wheel. Okay, so let's zoom out, making our rectangle small. And to bring over its full extent to our model workspace, it's simply double clicking our mouse wheel. So once more, double click our mouse wheel, and it brings the whole geometry to the fullest extent on our model workspace. And to move a geometry around, to move our views, it's simply panning. And to pan, it's simply holding our mouse wheel. So notice, as I press and hold our mouse wheel, the cursor turned into a black hand. And from here, we are panning. So that's the simple controls and working around your drawing in AutoCAD. Okay, recall a few minutes ago we discussed or we talked about status bar and drafting settings. This time, I want you to head over to our status bar and enable object snap tracking and object snap. Once more, the shortcut key for snap tracking is F11 to toggle it on and off, and F3 for object snap. Okay, in addition, on the left of object snap, let's bring in this fly out, and I want you, in addition, to enable midpoint. And another way to do that is simply head over to snap settings, and on our drafting settings under object snap, it's simply ticking midpoint. Okay, so with this 5 Snap modes enabled. I'm going to select OK. This time, let's bring in or activate our line command. And instead of heading up and selecting this, of course, the shortcut is simply typing L, hitting enter. And with object snap and snap tracking turned on, I'm going to hover over this horizontal line. And notice the triangle, it denotes our midpoint. Next, I'm going to head over to this vertical line on the left. Hover over the midpoint. And next, I'm going to move slowly to the right. And from here, we are given the intersection. So with this, I'm going to left click. And now we are exactly at the geometric center of this rectangle. So let's move to the right and head over here to this midpoint or intersection and left click. And to terminate the command, it's simply hitting escape. Okay, so recall our previous command is a line. So with that in mind, we can repeat that immediately instead of hitting L by simply pressing our space bar. So I know that because here at the bottom, at our command prompt, it says here line. Let's drop our first point at this endpoint, left click. Heading over to this other endpoint, left click. Move over here and left click. Let's say I made a mistake by placing our next point here. I can simply right click and select undo. Okay? Once more, by right clicking, it gives us additional options to work around in a specific command in AutoCAD. Okay? So let me delete this, hit L, create a line from here going here. Hitting escape. And just to add, there's another useful snap in AutoCAD. So let me select this 3 lines and hitting delete. Okay, so let's bring over our line command once more, hitting L, hitting enter, and once more prompted to place our first point. This time, I'm going to hold the shift and right click. Once more, line and the shift and a right click. From here, we can override specific object snaps. And this time, I'm going to select geometric center. Okay, so let's hover over any line of our rectangle. So notice here, as I hover, there's this green circle at the center denoting it's the geometric center. And to place our first point there, it's simply whenever that green circle appears, I can simply left click. So notice we are now at the geometric center and I can now move to the right and place our second point. Hitting escape. And that's how we can quickly create an efficient and accurate geometry using object snap, snap tracking, and snap overrides in AutoCAD. Moving forward, let's discover polar tracking and orthogonal mode, or simply ortho. Let's head over to our status bar and I want you to turn on polar tracking. By default, it's turned on. And at this fly out, I want you to enable or tick 45. Next, in addition, let's make sure that snap tracking and object snap is turned on. Next, let's grab our line command, hitting L and hitting our space bar. Let's drop our first point at this endpoint. And notice, as I hit the 45-degree angle, we are given the green dashed polar tracking line. So with this, next I'm going to hover over our midpoint or endpoint and move to the right. And now I am given an intersection. Left click here. Let's move somewhere around here. And in addition, while we are still in any command, I can pan. So I'm going to hold our mouse wheel to pan and move our geometry here. Next, moving to the left, and as I hit that 45-degree angle, notice the green dashed polar tracking line. And from here, we can drop our second point at this endpoint. Hitting escape. Next, let's discover ortho. I'm going to select this line and delete this. Let's now head over to our status bar and enable ortho mode. Once more, the shortcut key is F8. In addition, we cannot have ortho and polar tracking simultaneously turned on. It has to be one only. So if ortho is turned on, it automatically disables polar tracking. Okay, so with ortho turned on, let's grab our align command, hit L, hitting space bar, and let's move over to this vertical line, hover over its midpoint, and notice as I go to the right and move up, I am currently tied down or restricted to a horizontal axis. Once more, ortho locks you to the positive and a negative axis. So if I head to the left, I am tied horizontally. Moving back to the right, let's place our second point here. Hitting escape, hit spacebar once more, and let me show you the vertical constraint or restriction, hovering over to this midpoint, and as I go to the right or left, I'm restricted to this axis only. So dropping our second point at this midpoint and hitting escape. Okay, moving forward, I'm going to zoom extents, double click on our mouse wheel and zoom out. Let's discover more what's in store in the line command. So once more, hitting L, pressing our space bar, and now I am prompted to place our first point. Let's place it over at this endpoint or a midpoint. Left click here. Next, by default, dynamic input should be turned on. So if not, please turn on dynamic input. Next, I'm going to type in 20, 20. What I am instructing AutoCAD, specifically our align command, is to place our next point. I'm going to hit enter now and hit escape. I just instructed our align command to place our second point. Recall it's 20, and that means 20 to the X, starting from this point, and 20 going up. And if that is plotted, it intersects at this endpoint. And so if you want this line to be at the left, once more hitting L for line, let's drop our first point at this midpoint or endpoint. And our intent is to place our second point here. To do that, we need to go negative x direction. So negative 20, comma, and we have to go up on y, which is positive. So I'm going to type in 20. Hitting enter and hitting escape. Okay, we'll be learning more about absolute and relative coordinates in our future courses. So stay tuned. Moving forward, let's discover the arc command. But first, I want you to disable ortho by hitting F8. Okay, and before we begin, for beginners, arc is really frustrating when you're very new to AutoCAD. The golden rule for all arcs in AutoCAD is their positive direction is going counterclockwise around their center point. So let's now head over to arc, and notice there's a lot of arcs here. On your spare time, I want you to discover each of them. But for now, let's select start, center, end. Okay? My intent here is to create an arc from here going to this tip. And to do that, the start point of our arc will be on this point. Left click here, move up to this end point, and notice as I move slowly to the right, we now have created our target arc and on the direction that we wanted it to. Left click, and as a best practice, notice if I hit the space bar to repeat the arc command, we may be or possibly be using a different type of arc command. So to make sure, make it a habit to head over to our flyout and select our specific type of arc. So selecting start, center, end once more. My intent is to create the arc starting from this point going here. So to do that, let's first select this point, move to the left, left click here, and move up. Left click. Okay, and moving forward, let's discover circle. So let's select this fly out, and notice there's tons of options here for us to create a circle. Once more, on your spare time, I want you to discover them all, but for now, let's select center radius. Prompted to drop our center point. Let's drop this at this intersection or a midpoint. And next, notice it asks us for the radius. And at this moment or instance, let's just key in 20. Next, let's discover polylines. I'm going to save this drawing for now. Hit Control S and paste my target location for this. Let me name this as D-01. Selecting save. Next, let's create a new drawing. Selecting a new. And for the template, let's select acad.dwt, double left click on this one. Moving forward, let's move up to draw and select polyline. The shortcut key for this is typing PL and hitting spacebar or enter. Let's drop our first point somewhere around here. No need to be exact. Making sure dynamic input is turned on. Let's head up, hit F8 for ortho, locking us vertically. Let's type in 10, hit enter. Let's move to the right and key in 25. So notice here we are still at the Polyline command. Next, my intent is to create an arc. So I'm going to right click, selecting arc. Once more, ortho is still turned on, and with snap tracking turned on, I'm going to disable ortho, hitting F8. Let's now move over to this endpoint. Once more, making sure snap track is turned on. Let's move slowly to the right and hover also to this endpoint and move down. So now we have an intersection. Left click here and let's close this up. I can right click, and from here we have this menu giving us options. Let's select line, and we can quickly close this one by simply typing in C and hitting enter. The advantage of having a polyline is we have created different or we can create different geometries within only a one command, which is the polyline. In addition, a polyline consumes a smaller memory. Notice here we only have a one entity instead of having 3 lines and an arc. Next, before we discover creating polygons, let me introduce to you on how to create new layers. My intent here is to place our polygon into a new layer. And before we begin, make sure you are in the Home tab. And on the right, we have here a layer properties. The shortcut is LA. So notice here we have the layer palette. We can head over to this edge and resize this. Creating layers gives us the opportunity to be more organized in our drawing. To create a new layer, simply head up. Once more, the shortcut key is Alt N. Selecting this, let's name this as Polygon. Hitting enter, and let's change the color. In addition, we can resize these columns. Heading back to color once more with the polygon highlighted. I'm going to select this swatch. And let's select a color. I'm going to select index color 51. Selecting OK. And after we create a polygon, we'll be creating splines as well. Let's have that on a separate layer as well. So selecting a new, let's name this as splines. Hitting enter. And for its color, let's have this to be color 140. Selecting OK. Once more, in the future courses, we will be discovering more about layers. Selecting close. Let's now switch our layer 2. Heading over here to this drop down and selecting polygon. Notice here our current active layer is now polygon. Let's now head over to draw and head over to this fly out and select polygon. We are now prompted to enter the number of sides. Our target is a hexagon which has 6 sides, so I want you to type in 6, asking for the center of that polygon. So with object snap turned on, let's hover over here and select the center. Next, I want the polygon to be inside this arc, and that needs to be inscribed in circle. So let's head over to the right and select this midpoint. And because the current layer is a polygon, automatically our polygon is placed on this layer with this yellowish color. Moving forward, let's discover splines. Heading up to draw, selecting this drop down, and let's pin this. And notice here we have 2 splines, spline fit and a spline CV, which can be controlled with vertices. So I'm going to select spline CV. Let's drop our first point here, creating a random spline. Left click here and hit enter. Let's now select this spline. So notice here's our control of vertices. In addition, as I hover over a vertex, we have the option to stretch the vertex, add a new vertex, refine the vertices, or remove a vertex. So by moving this, I am modifying the shape of our spline. Okay, so in addition at the left, so notice this triangle or arrow pointing down. As I select this, notice we have the option to convert this spline into a fit spline. So notice the difference. I can reshape this spline by selecting this vertex or grips. Hitting escape. So splines are useful for civil engineers, to you guys who are into topology and terrains. And let's change the layer of the spline. So I'm going to select this, head over to our layers drop down and select splines. Hitting escape. And lastly, let's create another layer, typing LA, the shortcut for layer. Let me create a new one and type here Polyline for the name, and for the color, selecting this watch. Let's select this red color, selecting OK. Let's make this layer to be our current. I know that because Polygon has a check mark. So selecting this and selecting this layer with a green icon. Let's now close our layer palette, select our polyline, and head back to our layer drop down and select polyline. Hitting escape to deselect. And as a remembrance, I'm going to hit Control S and let's save this as D-02. So once more, if you have registered, we'll be sharing this file to you guys as a reference. Selecting save. And let's unpin our draw flyout.